Good evening. This is CTV News for Monday, April 9th. I'm Patricia Ballone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, one person is dead and two others were injured after a serious crash this morning. It happened in Bowie at the intersection of Mitchellville and Excalibur Roads. Two of the victims were initially trapped in a vehicle before being rescued, according to fire officials. One has since died, and the second was in critical condition at last check. The third person's injuries were not life-threatening. Investigators are still looking into the cause of the crash. And in a separate three-car vehicle crash that happened on Sunday, one person was killed and four were injured. It happened on Route 301 at Old Central Avenue in Bowie. Investigators are still looking into the cause. Well, on to Annapolis, where it is the end of the legislative session, and 90 days after the session got underway in January, it all winds down tonight in a marathon session. Byron Scott has more.
It's the last day of the legislative session here in Annapolis, and as you can imagine, as always, there is a lot of unfinished business. There is a lot on the agenda in Annapolis today, not the least of which is the Comprehensive Crime Bill. Over the weekend, the House passed two bills, which included some provisions of the Comprehensive Crime Bill proposed by Senator Bobby Zirkin, including the 10-year mandatory minimum sentence for a second offense using a firearm during a felony. While the House declared his bill dead, Zirkin said he liked the House version.
You tally up all of the bills together and kind of look at them as a combination, it does all of the things that we were trying to accomplish.
So I think see any problems with the passing?
Not from my standpoint. I think the House did an excellent job. They took a really hard look at that law. They added a provision of law about expungement, which I thought was excellent.
Education in Prince George's County also on the agenda. Senator Anthony Muse still hopeful his bill that would reinstate a fully elected school board goes up for a vote in the Senate.
Parents have been down here by the busloads. Teachers have been down here by the busloads. And to know that there are one or two persons who's against the bill, and love them all, but our county executive and Mike Miller, they are against the bill. And my understanding is that they've given a red light to it.
Last week, the House passed a measure that stops short of a fully elected board, but gives the board the authority to appoint the CEO, chair, and vice chair.
That's a do-nothing bill that does absolutely nothing. People don't want that bill.
Undocumented students are pushing for House Bill 1536. It would allow them to pay in-state college tuition or in-county tuition at a community college whether or not they live in the county where the college is located.
Not just me, but there's hundreds, thousands of undocumented students that would also be benefited from this bill.
It is my hope.
Delegate Valderrama is hopeful her bill authorizing speed cameras for Route 210 will pass in the Senate. She had been pushing for a series of cameras, but the measure before the Senate calls for just one at the intersection of Old Fort Road and 210.
I think we need to start somewhere. Is one camera going one direction ideal? No. But we need to start somewhere, and my plan, ideally, would be to come back here next year and work on this bill some more.
Again, this is the last day of the legislative session. Lawmakers are expected to work through late tonight. In Annapolis, Byron Scott, CTV News.
And state lawmakers have approved legislation that would expand the state's medical marijuana industry and allow for more racial diversity among licensees. Well, a fire devastates a Bowie family this morning. Just around noon, firefighters were dispatched to the 1400 block of Peachwood Lane. When they arrived, the blaze was quickly moving from the second floor toward the attic.
As they were fighting that fire, there was a partial roof collapse, which forced our firefighters out of the building to the safety of the exterior as we continued to fight the fire. As you can see, there's significant damage to the roof area. The structure, it pretty much burned off.
And officials say there was remodeling underway at the home that may have caused the fire. Meanwhile, a family of four is displaced after a fire rips through their College Park home. It happened in the 5000 block of Muskogee Street about 8 this morning. No injuries were reported. The cause of that fire is also under investigation. And two Prince George's officers found themselves on the wrong side of the law in Florida this weekend. 27-year-old Stephen Pascal was taken into custody on a warrant related to a domestic dispute in Maryland. Meanwhile, Charles Williams Jr., who is 25 years old, was charged with resisting arrest for allegedly intervening when officers were trying to apprehend his friend. Both have been suspended while the cases are being investigated.